Hey, what's going on, guys? This Saturday is UFC Fight Night Sao Paulo, Brazil. Jailton Almeida versus Derrick Lewis. And this is going to be my full card predictions. I'm going to go through every single fight on the card and give you a quick breakdown and prediction. Starting off with the first fight of the night, Kauê Fernandes versus Marc Diakiese. Fernandes making his UFC debut, coming over from LFA on a 2-fight winning streak. His last loss was a little over 2 years ago where he got out-grappled and started to gas out a bit. His last win, which was 7 months ago, he got a head kick KO over Felipe Douglas. And he's not fighting the worst competition, but he's been kind of inactive. He beat a guy who's 21-5 in his last fight. Fight before that, a guy who's 6-0. The loss was to a guy who's 7-0. Then before that, it's 4 years ago. You're going back 4 years ago for his fourth fight ago. And it's a guy who's 9-7. Then before that, a win over a guy who's 9-1, but that's over 5 years ago. So very inactive for Fernandes. Still very young, inexperienced. He's 8-1 overall record. Marc Diakiese coming in on a 2-fight losing streak. Lost to Joel Alvarez, but there was a head clash in that fight. It was a competitive fight before then. And then a loss to Michael Johnson. Honestly, the way I see this fight, you look at Marc Diakiese's last 2 wins against Damir Hadzovic and Slava Klaus. He uses grappling heavily in those fights. And I think that Fernandes is going to have a striking advantage, especially with his kicks. He has very good kicks, but he slows down and doesn't have good takedown defense, and his gas tank is kind of questionable. So I see Marc Diakiese going out there, taking him down, getting some control time, landing some ground and pound, and winning a decision. I'm going to go Marc Diakiese 29-28 decision. I could see it a 30-27. I could see maybe Fernandes also getting the first round. That's why I'm saying 29-28. I see it being a close fight early, but as Fernandes starts to fade, he starts to get out-grappled and beaten up on the ground and controlled on the ground. So I'm going Marc Diakiese via decision. Moving up on the card, we have Montserrat Ruiz versus Eduarda Moura. This is a matchup that is honestly a non-competitive fight in my opinion. I could be wrong, but Montserrat Ruiz has terrible grappling. She has terrible jiu-jitsu on the ground. She's just, once she gets taken down, she's easily has her guard passed. She's easily mounted. She gets her back taken with ease. She's hard to submit, I'll give her that, but in her last fight, she's on a 2-fight losing streak. She got destroyed by Jacqueline Moura, got absolutely brutalized and TKO'd in the third round. And throughout the entire fight, Ruiz started to shoot offensive takedowns, and Moura was more than happy to go to her back and then sweep her easily. And Eduarda Moura, she's only fought on Dana White's Contender Series. She's kind of inexperienced, but she's 9-0. And she's an absolute savage on the ground. She takes you down. She controls you. She beats you up. She has 8 of 9 wins by finish. And I just think in this fight, Ruiz is just a wild wing striker. Unless she clips her on the feet and KOs her, I think she's going to get taken down. And I think she's going to get controlled. I think she's going to get mounted and beaten up. So I'm going to go Eduarda Moura. I'm going to say late first round TKO. I think she's going to take Ruiz down in the first 30 seconds, start to advance her position, land some ground and pound. And I think once she gets in that full mount position, I think she's going to rain down nasty ground and pound, and the ref's going to stop it. I'm going in a women's MMA fight. I'm going Eduarda Moura, late first round TKO from the mount position. Moving up on the card, we have Angela Hill versus Denise Gomes. Angela Hill is still fighting. Oh my goodness. Why is she still fighting? Well, I don't even know why she's still fighting. She's 38 years old, going on 39. And honestly, she could win this fight because she's like weirdly good. Like, she's a well-rounded fighter. But it's like she's not great anywhere. She doesn't have great striking. She doesn't have great grappling. She has decent cardio. She's very tough as well. Her last fight, she got absolutely bludgeoned by Mackenzie Dern. Even on the feet, not only on the ground, but also on the feet. There's multiple points in that fight. It could have been stopped. Her last win before that is against Emily Ducote, bottom of the barrel. Fight before that, a win over Lupi Godinez. But if I remember correctly, I think I had Lupi Godinez barely winning that fight. But either way, that's a decent win for Angela Hill just to make it competitive. And fights before that, Verna Jandaroba lost there. Amanda Lemos lost there. Angela Hill finds a way to compete. I don't know how she does it, but she continues to find a way to compete. She's 15-13 overall record, which is crazy. But Denise Gomes, she's 8-2. She's 23 years old. A 15-year youth advantage for Denise Gomes. And she's an absolute savage on the feet. And she's strong in the clinch. And she does throw wild winging punches. But I just think, you look at her and you look at Angela Hill. She's getting clipped up by Mackenzie Dern on the feet. Mackenzie Dern's known for her grappling, not her striking. I think Denise Gomes is going to clip her up on the feet. We look what she did to Yasmin Howergy in her last fight, who was kind of a prospect people were looking at. And Gomes went out there and absolutely wrecked her badly, finished her in the first round. I'm going with Denise Gomes, first round KO over Angela Hill. I'm just picking finishes for women's MMA fights. I just think Angela Hill, she's going to have to force the grappling exchanges. and she's not some like advanced elite level grappler who can just double leg you and take you down and control you. And Denise Gomes, especially early, she's very tough to take down. She's very strong. She's strong in the clinch. She has nasty power. And it's like Angela Hill, I think, is going to be shooting for her life. But I think Gomes is going to rock her badly. And you're going to see Angela Hill like on a desperation single leg and just get ground and pound finished. I'm going to go first round, Denise Gomes. I think she gets it done over Angela Hill and sends Angela Hill one step closer to a losing record. Moving up on the card, we have Vitor Petrino versus Modestas Bukauskas. This is a fight that, honestly, I think a lot of people are going to look at this fight and say, I'm taking Vitor Petrino. You know, he's a massive light heavyweight. I mean, his physique is crazy. And then you have Modestas Bukauskas, who looks like he should honestly be at middleweight, looks like a smaller guy. But I think Modestas Bukauskas can win this fight. I'm not sure I'm picking him to win this fight, but you know, Bukauskas has really good movement, has decent striking. He's a technical striker. He's on a 4-fight winning streak. He returned to the UFC. His last loss was when Khalil Roundtree brutally oblique kicked him, where his knee just completely blew out. But since then, he came back out a win over Zach Paunga in his last fight, decision win there. Got clipped up, faced some adversity, and has a win over Tyson Pedro as well, which has kind of aged quite well. Not that Tyson Pedro is amazing. And Vitor Petrino is one of those guys who is super athletic, super big, but he's not really been all that impressive. He's undefeated. He's 9-0. His last fight was a win over Marcin Prachnio, where he got the third-round arm triangle. But it was looking uneventful up until that point, though. But he was just kind of controlling him on the ground, beating him up on the ground. It was competitive early. What I see in this fight is I think Vitor Petrino is going to be too big and too strong. I think he's going to look for the takedowns. Bukauskas is not easy to hold down. I mean, Zach Paunga was fighting at heavyweight to get into the UFC, took Bukauskas down, and Bukauskas was able to scramble back to his feet. But I think Petrino is just going to be too powerful on the feet for Bukauskas to win this fight. I think he's going to get clipped up. I think he's going to get taken down. I think he's going to get controlled. And I think Petrino's size advantage in this fight is going to be very apparent, and I think he's going to have a strength advantage. And I think in this fight, I think he's going to be a little bit more aggressive. His last fight, he was kind of being patient and not being super aggressive in the fight. I think this fight is going to be a little bit more aggressive. I'm going Vitor Petrino, second round TKO. I think Modestas Bukauskas is going to be getting controlled on the ground, and I think Petrino is going to be lighting him up with ground and pound shots and finish him in the second round, maybe from full mount. But I could also see Petrino getting another submission, but I'm going Vitor Petrino, second round TKO. Moving up on the card, oh my God, this is an absolute banger. Elizeu Zaleski versus Rinat Fakhretdinov. Why is this not on the main card? This fight should be on the main card. This is an outright banger. I mean, I love this fight. This may be the best fight on the card, as crazy as that sounds. Elizeu Zaleski on the 2-fight winning streak. His last fight, he beat Abubakar Nurmagomedov, stuffed the takedowns, landed on the feet. Fight before that, beat Benoit Saint-Denis within an inch of his life. The referee got fired for not stopping that fight. It should have been a stoppage win for Elizeu Zaleski. And then before that, you're looking at fights from 3 years ago. You're looking at fights from 4 years ago. It's crazy how inactive he's been. I think he's had injuries and stuff, but he's only fought twice, basically, in the last 3 years. And then you have Rinat Fakhretdinov, 22-2, 32 years old, arguably in his prime of his career, an absolute savage, took Kevin Lee's life in his last fight, clipped him up on the feet, and then guillotined him, choked him out. Fight before that, beat the crap out of Brian Battle, which has aged quite well. And when I look at this matchup, I've seen Abubakar get a couple takedowns against Zaleski in their fight, but Zaleski was able to get right back to his feet. I don't think he's going to be able to do that against Fakhretdinov. Fakhretdinov is big, is strong, and as many as, you know, there's always fans comparing different people to Khabib Nurmagomedov when they're from Russia and they have that grappling base. I think Rinat Fakhretdinov is the closest we've seen to it. Unbelievable pressure. His striking is evolving. He's always moving forward, and when he gets you down, he throws ruthless ground and pound. So, and he also has amazing submission ability. So, I have to go Rinat Fakhretdinov in this fight. And he has 18 of his 22 wins via finish. It's just, how is he going to finish? Is it going to be TKO? Is it going to be submission? In his last fight, I mean, the way he guillotined Kevin Lee, he snatched that neck up quick. I'm going to go Rinat Fakhretdinov, second round submission. I'm going to say guillotine. I'm going to say Elizeu Zaleski is going to be getting taken down, getting beaten up, and I think he's going to make it a priority. Instead of laying there and kind of trying to avoid getting ground and pound, I think you're going to see Zaleski try to scramble back to his feet with urgency, and I think he's going to end up giving up his neck, and I see Rinat Fakhretdinov getting it done via second round guillotine. Moving up on the card, we have Daniel Marcos versus Victor Hugo. Victor Hugo making his UFC debut after the Dana White's Contender Series. You have Daniel Marcos, who's undefeated, 15-0. I honestly thought he could have arguably lost the Davey Grant fight in his last fight. lack of urgency in that fight. Fight before that got a finish. Went out there and just savagely beat him to the body and finished him. And then before that, he was on Dana White's Contender Series as well. It's hard to get a gauge for Victor Hugo. I couldn't find a whole lot of footage of him. But, I mean, he's a decent fighter, no doubt. His striking is not the greatest. He has good kicks. He has decent grappling as well, and he primarily wants to grapple. And I didn't like his gas tank on Dana White's Contender Series. Even though he got the finish and got the knee bar, his hands were starting to drop in that second round. And Daniel Marcos has pretty technical striking. He has decent power. He has a decent variety of attacks. And I see Victor Hugo just trying to scramble for leg locks, looking for takedowns, looking for the clinch. And I think Marcos is good enough to defend those takedowns. We've seen him in grappling exchanges with Davey Grant. We've seen him in grappling exchanges in the fight before that. I think Daniel Marcos should win this fight. I'm pretty confident he wins this fight. I think maybe by decision, but I don't know. I've been kind of switching back and forth because I don't think Hugo has the best gas tank. And then you look at the level of competition. He hasn't been fighting the best level of competition. It's not horrible, but 15-7 the fight before that. And then on Dana White's Contender Series, he fought a guy who's 16-1. And again, the records don't mean everything, but still, I'm going to go Daniel Marcos third round TKO. Marcos conserves his energy pretty well throughout the fights. And he only, is aggressive when he feels like he has his opponent hurt. And I think Hugo is going to be spamming takedowns, get tired out, and I think Daniel Marcos finishes him via TKO in the third round. Moving up on the card, another absolute banger. This UFC Brazil card is amazing. Elves Brener versus Esteban Ribovics. I love this fight. This should be an absolute dog fight. I am so excited for this matchup. Elves Brener coming off a win over Guram Kutateladze in an absolute dog fight where he got split open. He was bleeding everywhere. Before that, got a split decision win over Zubara Tuhugov. Decent win there. Was getting outstruck a bit in there, but again, that was a super close fight. You look at Esteban Ribovics coming off a win over Camuela Kirk, where he got dominated in the first round, then came back in the second and third round to win the fight, but it was getting out-grappled badly in the first round. The fight against Lok Razabov, I think that's how you pronounce his name, that fight was pretty crazy, and Ribovics had his moments, but he would get over-aggressive and get taken down and controlled and beaten up on the ground. And Ribovics' grappling is really his hole in his game, but he's only 27 years old, and I love this fight. Both guys are relatively young, 26 for Brener, 27 for Ribovics. Both are 5'10", both similar reach. You have a little bit of reach advantage for Elves Brener. And I think both are excellent strikers, and both guys are always looking for a finish. I just think Brener has more tools. I think Ribovics is just super aggressive, has nasty power, where Brener, I think, is pretty aggressive, has good striking, has good power, but also has grappling as well. He was taking down Guram Kutateladze in the first round. I see this being a dogfight. I see it being close. I see it going to decision. I'm going Elves Brener 29-28 decision. I think this should be a banger fight, and I'm really looking forward to that matchup. Moving up on the card to the first fight on the main card, we have Ismael Bonfim versus Vinc Pichel. I'm going to be honest, guys. This is the easiest pick probably to make on the card. Ismael Bonfim wins this fight. Vinc Pichel, let me put it this way. You guys know I don't watch The Ultimate Fighter. I watched The Ultimate Fighter when Vinc Pichel was on The Ultimate Fighter. He's 40 years old. I think he was on The Ultimate Fighter 2011, 2010, maybe 2012. I think it was maybe 2012. He is old. He's been around forever. And this is just a fight to get Bonfim back on track. The UFC really has had a push for new Brazilian stars. And I think they're trying to build the Bonfim brothers into stars. This is an easy matchup for Ismael Bonfim. He lost his last fight against Benoit Saint-Denis. But I think he kind of went in overconfident. Benoit Saint-Denis is underrated as hell and has nasty body kicks, and he just kept spamming them over and over again. But we've seen what Bonfim did to Terrence McKinney, and I think he got overrated a bit there, but not overrated enough where he's not beating Vinc Pichel. Vinc Pichel, very gritty, okay striking and grappling. Lost to Marc Madsen in his last fight. Is 40 years old. When's the last? He's beaten Austin Hubbard 2 years ago, which has aged all right. Beat Jim Miller 3 years ago. Beat Roosevelt Roberts 4 years ago. So he's 40 years old. He's inactive. And, I just think Bonfim's way too technical on the feet, way too powerful, good scrambling ability if you take him down. And I just think there's no advantages for Vinc Pichel. And Bonfim's going to be way faster as well. And even though Vinc Pichel is very durable, I'm going Bonfim first round KO. I think he clips him with something bad, hurts him badly, and then just follows up for a finish. I see a nasty TKO, first round TKO for Ismael Bonfim. Moving up on the card, we have Rodolfo Vieira versus Armen Petrosian. This is an interesting middleweight matchup. I'm looking forward to this fight. I think Petrosian, honestly, may be one of the most underrated fighters. As crazy as that sounds, I'm not saying he's like the elite of the elite, but he's very underrated. Like, people don't really talk about him at all. He's on a 2-fight winning streak, coming off a win over Christian Leroy Duncan, who a lot of people, myself included, were very high on. Before that, got a win over AJ Dobson. His last loss was against Caio Baralho, so where he got out-grappled, but he had some moments in that fight as well. So, and he even has a win over Gregory Rodriguez. You know, so he comes off Dana White's Contender Series. You have Rodolfo Vieira kind of trading wins and losses in his last few fights. Got a win over Cody Brundage, but that means absolutely nothing. Cody Brundage is an embarrassment to the sport and an absolute horrible fighter. Fight before that, lost to Chris Curtis, was having his takedown stuff and just got outstruck on the feet. But he had some moments on the feet as well, but that was a year and a half ago. You know, when I look at this matchup, I see grappler versus striker. Rodolfo Vieira has to get a takedown here. And he's big, he's strong, he's big for the weight class in general. But Armen Petrosian, he's come a long way, I think, since getting outright dominated by Caio Baralho in the grappling. And he wasn't even really dominated. He had some scrambles. I don't think Vieira has the entries that Baralho had. I don't think he has the speed that Baralho had. So I think Petrosian, he knows this guy's going to take him down nonstop or attempt to take him down nonstop. And I think he has the far superior striking. I think Vieira has some okay striking. I think it's improving. But I think Petrosian gets it done. I think he's going to outstrike him on the feet. And Vieira is pretty, durable. So I'm going to go Armen Petrosian via decision. I'm going to say 30-27 decision. I'm going to say Armen Petrosian wins all 3 rounds. Unless Rodolfo gets a takedown and gets some control time, maybe wins the round, I don't even see him getting a submission. I think Petrosian showed really good submission defense against Caio Baralho, who has very good submission ability. So I don't think even Vieira squeaks out around with some grappling, but I think Petrosian, good footwork, good variety of attacks, good kicks in general. I think he'll come in with a good game plan, and I think he'll get it done on the feet by outstriking Rodolfo Vieira. So I'm going Armen Petrosian, 30-27 decision. Moving up on the card, we have Caio Baralho versus Abus Magomedov. Now, I'm really disappointed in this fight, but I also really love this fight because the original matchup was Caio Baralho versus Nursultan Ruziboyev. And I was really looking forward to seeing if Ruziboyev won. I wanted to see him and his coach celebrate again. But unfortunately, he's out of the fight. That was a banger middleweight matchup. This is a banger middleweight matchup. And Abus Magomedov steps in. Now, I'm going to be honest. I was really thinking about picking Abus Magomedov in this fight. I thought very hard about picking Abus Magomedov. But he's taking this fight on short notice. And while I do believe he's an elite striker, has unbelievable kicks, he lost to Sean Strickland in his last fight. That has aged quite well. Sean Strickland is now a champion. In that first round, he was battering Sean Strickland on the feet, but Abus gassed out. And even took down Sean Strickland and took his back. A lot of people forget about it in the first round. And I want to pick him so badly. I think Abus Magomedov may come out and win this fight because I think he's the far superior striker and he has very good grappling as well. Obviously, he hasn't fought as much as we would like to see. We don't have a lot of footage on him because he only has 2 fights. Basically, in the last 3 years, he has 3 fights in the last 3 years. And he's kind of been inactive, had injuries. He's 33 years old, so he's arguably in his prime right now. And then he gassed out in his last fight. And that's why I can't pick him in this fight. I don't trust him. I don't trust his gas tank on short notice. He had a full camp. He gassed out in the second round. I can't trust Abus Magomedov's gas tank. I think he can stuff the takedowns. I think he can outstrike Caio Baralho. I think he can knock out Caio Baralho. But I just don't like his gas tank on short notice, even in a 3-round fight. Because he had a full 4-minute break in the first round against Sean Strickland, and he still gassed. So I can't trust the gas tank of him. But I could see a scenario where Abus Magomedov stuffs the takedowns, lands nasty strikes on the feet, and finishes Caio Baralho. But I'm going to go Caio Baralho. I'm going to say decision. I'm going to say Magomedov comes in this fight. I think he's going to be a little less aggressive because he wants to conserve his gas tank. And I think it's going to be less effective because he's most effective when he's super aggressive. But if he doesn't find that finish, he gasses out. So I think he's going to conserve his energy. He knows he's on short notice. And I just think the fight's going to start off kind of competitive, but then it's going to slowly fade into Caio Baralho's favor as he looks for takedowns. You see Abus Magomedov shrugging off some of the takedowns, stuffing some of the takedowns. He's going to get more tired, and then eventually he's going to get taken down, controlled a bit. And I'm going to go Caio Baralho. I'm going to say 29-28 decision. Maybe Abus Magomedov wins the first round. Abus Magomedov, first round mythical fighter right there. I mean, he did better against Sean Strickland than Israel Adesanya did. So you have to give him some credit for that. But I think Caio Baralho, Abus is going to fade in the second and third round. And I think Baralho will mix in the grappling and be able to control him and beat him up on the ground a bit, looking for a submission. And I think Caio Baralho wins via decision. Moving up on the card, we have Rodrigo Nascimento versus Don'Tale Mayes. This bout order is horrific. I hope they change it around. How is this up this far up on the card? This is the featured fight on the main card, a heavyweight matchup. Both guys not particularly skilled in any, respect. I mean, they're okay fighters, don't get me wrong, but the heavyweight division isn't that good, and both these guys are bottom of the barrel. Rodrigo Nascimento, kind of a volume guy. He's not really, a big power puncher. His last fight, he won a split decision over Ilir Latifi, was taken down multiple times there. Fight before that, split decision win over Tanner Boser. Fight before that, he got a KO win, but I forgot. It was something to do with a test result. Ended up being overturned to a no contest. And then he has a loss to Chris Daukaus 3 years ago. I mean, losing to Chris Daukaus, I don't care when it was. I don't care if it was 20 years ago. You lose to Chris Daukaus, it's hard for me to pick you. You look at Dontel Mays, and he's so slow on the feet. He has okay grappling. He's a massive heavyweight. Coming off a win over Andrei Arlovsky, slept Andrei Arlovsky. Fight before that, lost to Augusto Sakai via decision. Fight before that had a split decision. I think it was a split decision draw against Hamdi. This is a tough fight to pick, honestly. I could see Rodrigo Nascimento going out there and outstriking him with his volume, but I think Dontel Mays can mix in his grappling and win this fight with his grappling. We've seen Dontel Mays, in recent fights against Hamdi, had some takedowns. Against Josh Parisian, he was in the north-south position, literally using cup shots, and just dominated him with the grappling. And Nascimento has shown poor grappling, getting taken down by Ilir Latifi, who literally is in no way, shape, or form it should be a heavyweight. He should be in the middleweight division, honestly. And he was getting taken down by Latifi and controlled. So I'm going to go Dontel Mays decision. Dontel Mays doesn't have the best cardio, but, he just always looks gassed in general. But he doesn't fight like, it's not like, oh my goodness, he's going to get finished here. So I'm going to go Dontel Mays. I think he's just bigger, stronger. He held in there with the clinch with Augusto Sakai, who's a massive heavyweight, because Dontel Mays is a massive heavyweight. And Rodrigo Nascimento is one of those guys that honestly could probably get down to light heavyweight, even though he's rather big himself. So I'm going Dontel Mays via decision. I'm going to say 29-28 decision, maybe controversial decision where everyone thinks, oh, I think this guy won, I think that guy won, and it's just a horrible fight. Moving up on the card to the co-main event, we have Gabriel Bonfim versus Nicholas Dalby. I am so excited to see Gabriel Bonfim back. He's one of my favorite fighters in terms of unranked prospects. I think he could be a future contender. To be honest, though, the UFC is building him that way. I've talked about the Bonfim brothers basically getting squash matches. Nicholas Dalby's here to be sacrificed to Bonfim. Honestly, if Nicholas Dalby pulled this out, that'd be shocking. He's 38 years old. He's on a 3-fight winning streak, but none of them he's looked particularly impressive. All decision wins. Meanwhile, you have Bonfim, who's an absolute savage. 15-0, undefeated, all 15 wins by finish. His last fight, nasty guillotine over Trevin Giles. Fight before that, mounted guillotine over Manor Lazez. UFC, or not UFC debut, but Dana White's Contender Series, got a Von Flue choke to get into the UFC. And I just think Gabriel Bonfim, he's nasty on the feet, super athletic, super fast, super wild and crazy and powerful. And Nicholas Dalby's just like, I don't even know how to describe him. He's just like you're playing the computer on EA UFC. That's basically what Nicholas Dalby is. He's just kind of clinching up. There's nothing really anything particularly special about him. Has okay cardio. Beat Muslim Salihov. He was kind of out grappling him a little bit, now clinch working him. But he's not going to do that against a young, hungry Gabriel Bonfim, who's an absolute savage and a finisher. I see Bonfim going out there and smashing him on the feet early, hurting him badly. Dalby kind of scrambling, maybe gets down to one knee, looking for a takedown just out of desperation. I'm going Gabriel Bonfim first round guillotine. I think he gets it done, or first round guillotine, whatever you want to call it. I just think that Gabriel Bonfim is a special talent, and the submission ability of Bonfim is unbelievable. And I just don't see how Dalby hangs in there with him. I think it's going to be a first round finish. Wrecks him on the feet, forces Dalby to look for a takedown. And what's crazy, and I could not believe this when I was looking through the resumes, Dalby's never been finished. So I think Gabriel Bonfim is going to be the first man to finish Nicholas Dalby. Moving up on the card to the main event, we have Jailton Almeida versus Derrick Lewis. A short notice fight. This was originally supposed to be Jailton Almeida versus Curtis Blades, and Derrick Lewis steps in on like a month's notice, I believe it is, by the time it happens. You have Derrick Lewis 1-3 in his last 4. He won his last fight against Marcus Rogerio de Lima, flying knee, then finished him on the ground. Before that, just getting finished left and right. Got finished by Sergey Spivak via submission. Fight before that, got KO'd by Sergey Pavlovich. Fight before that, got KO'd by Tai Tuivasa. His last win, before his most recent win over De Lima, was against Chris Daukaus. So, Jailton Almeida, I mean, the grappling ability is amazing, but you always have that threat from Derrick Lewis, that nuclear power, that unbelievable power that he possesses. And he's also pretty fast with his kicks as well. He doesn't get enough credit. But Jailton Almeida, I mean, he's basically a grappling specialist. He's bulking up for heavyweight. Before, he was kind of hanging around that like 220 mark. He's bulking up a bit. I mean, his last fight, he made quick work of Jairzinho Rozenstruik. As long as Almeida doesn't get clipped on the way in, I just think he gets Derrick Lewis down and has his way with him. Jailton Almeida has unbelievable jiu-jitsu. Derrick Lewis has no jiu-jitsu. He gets taken down and he tries to power his way back to his feet with all muscle, no technique at all. And Jailton Almeida is just not going to let that happen. So I see Jailton Almeida in this fight shooting a takedown almost immediately. Maybe a single leg, maybe an ankle pick, something along those lines. I think he's going to take Derrick Lewis down right away. And I think he's going to work his way to the back. And I think he's going to get a rear naked choke. I think it's going to be similar to the Daniel Cormier fight years ago for Derrick Lewis. Kind of took that fight on short notice. They needed a main event, and I think he got submitted via rear naked choke in the first round. Might have been the second round. I'm not sure. But unless Almeida gets clipped with like an uppercut, like Curtis Blades did against Derrick Lewis, which is very possible, Jailton Almeida is just too slick on the ground. Derrick Lewis doesn't have anything for him on the ground. So if this fight hits the mat, it is over for Derrick Lewis, unless he scrambles before Almeida cements the position. But I think Almeida's too big, too strong. I mean, Derrick Lewis is big and strong as well. But even if they're the same strength, same powerful, same size, Almeida's going to have the better technical ability with his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I have Jailton Almeida. I'm going to say first round rear naked choke. I would not be surprised, though. Derrick Lewis sometimes just finds a way to land that KO shot. He has nuclear power in his hands. But I think Jailton Almeida plays it safe. Doesn't have the best striking, but I think he's going to go out there, look for a takedown literally immediately, find that takedown, and submit Derrick Lewis. I'm going to go in Jailton Almeida, first round, rear naked choke. Let me know what you guys think of my predictions down in the comments. Who you picking in the main event? Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.